Hello to everyone that's joining us here at both sides of the conversation. Welcome to our Sunday conversation. Thank you for joining us today and spending your day with us. We gather here on this virtual setting, this space, every Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I am Colise Hollins on behalf of the executive director, the bishop, everybody knows him, John Henry. He's the founder of both sides of the conversation. We also have our co-host, Io White, Ivan Hudson, Mark Scott, and our guest, Jordan McGowan. Say something to the community.
Always ladies first. Io.
Good evening, community. Happy Sunday. Coming to a great end of this week. Very eventful week. And we have a great guest tonight. Great topic tonight, actually. So looking forward to getting into it with you guys.
Brother Mark Scott here. As always, glad to be a part of both sides of the conversation. Definitely looking forward to this conversation because it's one I think that impacts all of us in the community at various levels, but it's one thing we're all connected to. So I'm looking forward to getting some gems of wisdom that we can all use to move forward as a community.
Good afternoon, community. Thank you for joining us here on this Sunday afternoon. We hope that we are able to enlighten you and to give you a bit of food for thought as we discuss our topic today, which is, as was stated before, a very good one.
Yes, definitely. So today's conversation, the Sunday conversation, as you all know, it's a popcorn style conversation once we get into our topic. So, of course, if you didn't know, we are on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter. Go ahead and subscribe, like, and follow us both sides of the conversation because we are changing the narrative. Also, don't forget to follow us on YouTube and ring the bell so that you get the alerts for our shows. During this live show, you can actually live comment, ask questions, and share your thoughts during the show. Today, we will be having a very needed discussion on the economic state of Black America. Yes, you heard it. Today, we will have this very needed conversation because it has to be had, right? How are Black people obtaining their wealth? What are Black people doing with their money? Why are Black people spending the money the way that they are? When are Black people given the opportunity to do whatever they do with their money? Is there opportunity? How are Black people preparing for what's ahead? And so with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get into our news and our events, and we will start this show pretty soon and introduce our guest today. All right, with the news, let's get with the news.
All right. Excuse the mute button there, everybody. Let's get into the world news. First headline reads, can pickleball fill San Francisco's empty downtown spaces? An Old Navy at a mall in New Hampshire transformed into the All-Star Pickleball Club last December, and it's a draw for players from as far as Massachusetts. Could the same thing happen at the recently collapsed Westfield San Francisco Center? Also in the headlines, how many of San Francisco's homeless people have jobs? According to the San Francisco Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing's 2022 point-in-time court report, about 17% of San Francisco's 7,754 homeless people said they were employed full-time, part-time, or sporadically. Also, drug crackdown. San Francisco mayor reveals new arrest policy. San Francisco authorities will force people taken into custody for drug use or possession into a specialized court after a second arrest. Mayor London Breed announced the policy change by the district attorney's office in a conversation Wednesday evening at the San Francisco Jewish Community Center. And also in the news, ChatGPT creator Sam Altman tells San Francisco crowd he can't be trusted. ChatGPT creator Sam Altman made an appearance at the Bloomberg Technology Summit in San Francisco Thursday morning, chatting about the existential threats and benefits of artificial intelligence. Altman was asked, "Why should we trust you?" "You shouldn't," Altman said. "I think at this point in time, people should basically spend as much time asking as many questions as they would like. No one person should be trusted here." And that'll wrap it up for the news. I'll pass it back over to you for the events.
Oh, thank you, Mark, so much. But boy, when you can't be trusted, that's it. And trust is something.
I like his honesty.
Yes. So right on with the events. San Francisco residents, do you have a misdemeanor or felony that needs clearing? Yes, we have all our links for you to click on and have this information readily at your fingertips. Link 21 is hosting an open house so you can link with them to help improve your Northern California travel choices, connections, and communities. Online open house is going to be open 7 days a week, 24 hours per day, starting mid-June through mid-July. So that's about 30 days. There are 2 virtual events also happening, June 27th at 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m., as well as June 29th, 5 to 6 p.m. The Dreamkeeper Initiative is having a 20-minute session to get your questions answered by San Francisco DKI Director Saida Latufu Birch and members of the DKI team. There will be 3 locations for these events. Monday, June 26, 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. at the Visitation Valley Sunnydale Mission, and also Mission Blue 144 Leland Avenue. Monday, the 26th, 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m., Bayview Hunters Point at the Southeast Community Facility. This is at 1550 Evans Avenue. So Tuesday's event is the 27th, 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. at the Potrero Hill in San Francisco at the Public Library at 1616 20th Street. So go out there and support the Dreamkeeper Initiative. They will be out there with the team and you can ask questions. They'll be in 20-minute sessions. So make the time useful and go ahead and make your way to those events. San Francisco Human Rights Commission, Freedom, Dreaming Futures, a free virtual conversation featuring Erykah Badu. You heard it, Erykah Badu. And we'll have the link information. It's June 29th, 2023, 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. All right, and the information is below. Here to Stay is hosting an in-person cafe for Oakland small business owners. This is happening on June 28th, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Cypress Mandela Training Center at 977 66th Avenue in Oakland. San Francisco Human Rights Commission is having a free virtual conversation, Freedom, Dreaming, and Futures. You heard it. Once again, Erykah Badu will be there. APRI, a Philip Randolph Institute, is hosting information sessions as well. Many resources on obtaining a clean slate, jobs, housing support, and financial literacy. This is happening June 29th at 1301 Evans Avenue, Learning Center at the back door. Lonnie Green is hosting a Frisco Game Night, celebrating gospel, blues, jazz, soul, funk, electro, hip hop. This is a free event. There will be a talent show with cash prizes and a raffle. June 30th, that's 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. There'll also be a talent show happening at 7 p.m. at the Bayview Opera House, 4705 3rd Street in San Francisco. City Kids is hosting a CreatorCon. It's a free event. Creative outlets of art, music, and fashion. Save the date, July 14th, 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. The event will take place at the 200 block of Jones Street. More information will be coming soon. Youth Speaks is hosting a Brave New Voices, the world's best poets in San Francisco. You heard it. This summer only, Youth Speaks International Poetry Slam Festival is back for the first time since 2019. A week of live, life-changing, in-person events. There will be youth writing workshops and performances by artists and activists, July 20th through July 22nd. Police Community Partnerships is hosting the Bayview National Night Out 2023. It's Kids Zone, food, resource fair, and more. August 1st, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. There will be 2 locations, the Bayview Opera House at 4705 3rd Street, as well as the Joseph Lee Recreational Center at 1598 Oakdale Avenue. Mo Magic will be hosting a backpack giveaway on August 5th, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Ella Hill Hutch, 1050 McAllister Street in San Francisco. B Magic will also be hosting a backpack giveaway on August 12th, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Now Hunters Point, 155 Jennings Street in San Francisco. San Francisco Human Rights Commission has regular bi-monthly mission meetings on the 2nd and 4th Thursday of each month at 5 p.m. in the San Francisco City Hall, room 416, and you can also attend via Zoom. African American Reparations Advisory Committee has monthly meetings virtually at 5:30 p.m. every second Monday. City College of San Francisco Mission Office is offering an administrative certification program. The curriculum is in person at 1125 Valencia Street in San Francisco. City colleges also having a San Francisco Mission offices are having this offering a free 18-week certificate program with job placement services for office positions in the construction industry. The classes are August of 2023 to December of 2023. It's at 1125 Valencia Street in San Francisco. Go ahead and get the information at that website below. But you can promote your business, nonprofit, or community impact on Hidden Gems. Share your expertise on Educational Thursdays, or be a panelist on Sunday Conversations as today. You can go to that link, click join our show, and select the date that you want to join, and we will see you there. But keep up with both sides of the conversation. Our latest shows, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You can even subscribe to our newsletter. Both Sides of the Conversation is in search of volunteers. Give back to the community. You can email hr@bsotc.org. Now, remember our upcoming shows. Hidden Gems is Tuesday, June 27th at 7 p.m. And our Educational Thursdays, this Thursday will be June 29th at 7 p.m. And it will be on health, COPD awareness. That's chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, if you didn't know. But I tell you today, the economic state of a Black America, it is going to be a deep conversation, y'all. I'm telling you. We're going to go ahead and no further delay. We're going to bring up Jordan McGowan to our set so that he can go ahead and share a little bit about himself and what he'll be bringing to the conversation today. Go ahead, Jordan.
How y'all doing? I appreciate y'all having me. Sorry, I'm in motion. I am at the airport. I'm leaving Atlanta. I'm headed back from the National Black Radical Organizing Conference. So I think it's pretty apropos that I'm here on the show today. So I'm excited to be with y'all. I might turn my camera off, so things get shaky, but I, do my best to chime in and, provide what I can. Again, I am the Minister of Programs at Neighbor Programs. We're a Pan-African organization funded out of the Black Panther Party and the community survival programs. So again, this idea of who we are, what's important in our value system, and then understanding the economics behind it is important to us as well.
But thank you so much, Jordan, for being here. We appreciate your contribution to the community and how you're sacrificing just to be here with us on set. I tell you, though, we're going to get into some statistical information, and Io will be bringing that to us now.
With reading all of those events and all those free job trainings and all these things, you would think that we would be in our community taking more advantage of that with the state of the African-American communities. But unfortunately, these stats say different. Research has documented geographic mismatches between Black workers and opportunity. Underrepresentation in fast-growing, higher-wage industries, lower odds for advancement, and higher attributions for Black workers in frontline and entry-level work. Low representation in executive roles, and a lack of sponsorship and allyship for Black employees. The occupational lens take in the work is an important complement to each of those perspectives. And it is and is linked to the wage gap, which holds the key to greater economic mobility and address. The median annual wage for Black workers is approximately 30%, or $10,000 lower than the white workers, a figure with enormous implications for household, economic security, consumption, and the ability to build wealth. Black workers make up 12.9% of the U.S. labor force today, but earn 9.6% of the total U.S. wages. There is an estimated $220 billion annual disparity between Black wages today and what they would be in scenario of full party, with Black representation matching the Black share of the population across occupations and the elimination of racial pay gaps within occupational categories. Achieving this scenario would boost total wages by 30% and draw approximately 1 million additional Black workers' employment.
Wow, best said. And I'll tell you, just before November's midterm elections, there was a national survey of Black voters conducted by the GRIO KFF found that Black voters named the state of the economy and its impact on their pocketbooks as their number one concern. We would like to share a short video with you. Bear with us. And the video is on how will the economy impact Black Americans in 2023. So bear with us while we share this video.
And while we're waiting for the video to cue,
Last time we did this.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Mr. President, I have a couple of questions on several issues. One, the Supreme Court. As you know, the Supreme Court has before it the issue of college admissions and affirmative action. What can and are you planning in case of a rollback that is expected? There are legal analysts that say that there will be drastic implications. There are tentacles from this, and they even say that this could impact Brown v. Board, the decision from Brown v. Board.
Well, you know, first of all, I asked our Justice Department to defend the present policy before the Supreme Court. And like a lot of pundits, I'm not prepared to believe that the Supreme Court is going to overrule the existing decision. That's far from certain, and I don't believe that. But number one, what I did to try to change it is object to it before the Supreme Court of the United States, our administration. Number two, there are a number of things that we can and must do to make it. And by the way, this is a case involving an Asian American in terms of getting into school, and whether there's affirmative action makes sense at all from the standpoint of those who are arguing against it. But you know, the fact is that we're also in a circumstance where there's a lot that we can do in the meantime to make sure that there's an access to good education across the board. And that is by doing things that relate to starting education at age 3, formal schooling at age 3, which increases not daycare, but school. All the studies over 10 years show that that increases the prospect of someone making it through 12 years without any difficulty, no matter what the background they come from, by 56%. And I also think that we should be making sure that we have the ability to provide for 2 years of education beyond that, whether it's apprenticeships or community colleges. And we also are in a situation where I think that, for example, I want to make sure a lot of it has to do with finances as well, that we make sure that we have help for people who come from modest means to be able to get to school. You know, the cost of college education has increased fourfold. And it used to be that a Pell Grant would cover something like 70% of the college tuition. Now it covers significantly less than that. So I want to increase the Pell Grants as well. But let's see what the Supreme Court decides. And I am hopeful, and our team and the lawyers who argued for us are not nearly as certain as the people you quoted as saying it's going to be overruled.
Next question, sir. The issue is inflation. The GRIO and KFF conducted a study of Black voters that said inflation was the number one issue, and we saw it in this midterm election. What can you promise concretely in these next 2 years that will help turn the pocketbook for the better in the midst of staving off a recession?
Well, a number of things. First of all, Black unemployment is almost cut in half under my administration just since I began. More Black businesses have opened up, small businesses, than ever before. We're now in a situation where we're providing, through the Small Business Administration, down payments for people buying homes, because most people accumulate wealth in the value of their home. Most middle-class families are like mine. My dad bought a home, didn't have it, just scraped together to get home. By the time he was able to retire, he had built up equity in the home. That's how most people do that. And so But what I can't do is I can't guarantee that we're going to be able to get rid of inflation, but I do think we can. We've already brought down the price of gasoline about $1.20 a gallon across the board, and I think that the oil companies are really doing the nation a real disservice. They've made, 6 of them made over $100 billion in the last quarter in profit. $100 billion. In the past, if they had done the two things that they have done before, one, invest in more refineries and producing more product, and or passing on the rebates to the gas stations, or they sell the oil at a cheaper rate than they are selling it now, not taking advantage, and that lowers the price of the total gallon of gas because that gets passed on. So there's a whole lot of things that we can do that are difficult to do, but we're going to continue to push to do them. And the other thing is that one of the things that makes a gigantic difference is what are the costs that exist in the average family and average Black community. One, prescription drug cost. Well, we're driving those down precipitously beginning next year. And, I'll bet a lot of people in the African American and Caucasian community that need to take insulin for diabetes. Well, we're going to be reducing that cost. They're not going to pay more than $35 for the insulin instead of average of $400. And I can go down the list of the things that my dad used to say it a different way. At the end of the month, the things you have to pay for, from your mortgage to food on the table to gasoline in the automobile, do you have enough money to do it? And when it's done, do you have anything left over? And medical bills are a big piece of that, particularly in the African American community and the poorer communities. They need help. And so we're driving down all of those costs, and we've already passed the legislation to do that. It's just taking effect. So there's a lot of things we can do to affect the things that people need on a monthly basis to reduce their inflation, their cost of living. But I am optimistic because we continue to grow and at a rational pace. We are not anywhere near a recession right now in terms of the growth, but I think we can have what most economists call a soft landing. I'm convinced that we're going to be able to gradually bring down prices so that they, in fact, end up with us not having to move into a recession to be able to get control of inflation.
Mr. President, last question on humanity. Everybody else got some. Well, you're coming.
Okay, go ahead.
Last question on humanity. Sir, you can't legislate and you can't executive order out the issue of empathy or the lack thereof in the midst of this rhetoric, this heated political rhetoric. What's next?
Part of what I think leadership requires, and I hope I meet the standard, is letting people know you understand their problem. Again, my dad used to have an expression. He said, I don't expect the government to solve my problems, but I expect them at least know what they are, understand them. And like a lot of you, we've been very fortunate as a family, but we've also been through a lot of fairly tough times. And I've had the great advantage of having a family to get through them. When my first wife and daughter were killed when a tractor trailer broadsided them and killed my wife and killed my first wife and killed my daughter. And my 2 boys are expected to die. It took the jaws of life 3 hours to get them out there on top of their dead mother and dead sister. I understand what that pain's like. And when Jill and I lost Bo after a year in Iraq, winning the Bronze Star Conspicuous Service Medal, a major in the United States military, came home with stage 4 glioblastoma because he lived about between 200 and 500 yards from a burn pit that's 10 feet deep and as big as a football field, burning every toxic waste you could find. I think that we understand what it's like to lose family members, mothers, fathers to cancer. All of you been through that kind of thing. We've been fortunate, though. We've had each other. We've had strong families, Jill's sisters, my brothers, my sister. And so what we can do to deal with that empathy is make sure there's help available Make sure there's people who are there to help, whether they are psychologists or whether they're medical doctors or whether they're social workers, to be there to help just hold a hand. And for example, we can do an awful lot for a lot of families, the families you're talking about, if we reinstate this child tax credit. It cut child poverty by 40% when it was in place. I couldn't get it passed the second time around. So there's a lot we can do. And the empathy is not just talking about it, it's communicating to people you genuinely understand. And I hope a lot of people don't understand, because I don't want people having to know the pain. But the second piece of that is let them know that you are there to help. You're there to help. And one of the things I've talked with Vivek Murthy about, and a lot of you have written about it, and you've written it well about it, is the need for mental health care in America. You know, when we got elected, there were something like, I don't know, 2, 3, 5 million people who gotten their COVID shots. Well, in the meantime, I got over 220 million people, all 3 shots. But in the meantime, what happened? We lost over 1 million dead. 1 million dead. I read one study that for those 1 million people, they had 9 people who were, each one had averaged 9 people close to them. A relative, someone they're married to, a child, someone close. The impact has been profound. Think of all the people, think of all your children and your grandchildren who didn't have that senior prom, who didn't have that graduation party, who didn't have all the things we had that we took for granted, that impact on their psyche. So there's a lot we have to do. And empathy reflects itself not just in what a person demonstrates they understand, of knowing what people need and helping to make it happen. And we're trying to do that. And a lot of Republicans trying to do it too. I don't mean this is a partisan thing. A lot of people are trying to do it.
We've heard it. There was a lot talked about on there, and let's go ahead and get right into this discussion. Let's bring Jordan up just in case he's able to speak. But there's a lot of things that were discussed. I mean, we heard Biden. He talked about we're not near a recession, that he's bringing down prices, college education, unemployment, drug costs, Black businesses are up. There's down payments for homes, gas prices are down. And what are the monthly necessities for us Black folks? So there's a lot of things that he touched on. Let's go ahead and throw that conversation, the economic state of the Black America.
Well, I'll be honest, watching that, it almost reminded me of growing up in the church. You hear all the right things being said, because it's no secret what the state of Black America is. Just we understand our position, and it impacts us all, but at different levels, just depending on your socioeconomic status. But they say all the right things, and listening to, I mean, let's just be honest, a politician who they're experts at saying the right things. But when we look at the track record and the history, our situation is not even improved overall. In some ways, we've actually gone backwards over the last 40 to 50 years as a community. And while it makes you feel good to hear people say the right things, the reality of it is we all know everybody's struggling to make ends meet at some juncture. So we need to have this conversation in a way that is redemptive. And quite honestly, I would be remiss if I didn't draw from to me, what I would consider to be the godfather, who actually put out a blueprint for economics for Black America, and Dr. Claude Anderson. I mean, he wrote books like Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Dirty Little Secret. We need to have this conversation on multiple levels. And I'll just to be quick, I'll sum it up in 5. But one is economic empowerment. We got to promote Black-owned businesses, entrepreneurship, and education for economic success for our community. We need to have an honest conversation about wealth redistribution. I mean, when we get into talking about things such as reparations, which have been done for other communities that have not suffered what we have suffered, and they can track all of the impact economically of what has happened through us. So there needs to be an honest conversation about what wealth redistribution would look like. And then we got to continue to talk about education and cultural awareness, because platforms like this now, thanks to the internet, our community in different age levels and different perspectives are having conversations about generational wealth and making money together and collaborating. So we need to talk about this and educate ourselves, get more financially literate as a community. Then, of course, the political engagement and advocacy. And again, while I do honestly feel like politicians are a lot of lip service, we can't not participate in the process. We have to have people who actually have a heart for the people, understand the system, and know how it works, so we can be strategic at all levels. And then, like this platform, community collaboration, we need to have grassroots networks of people working together to build economic basis for individual communities. Because again, what somebody does in Washington, D.C., if my community in San Francisco is having a major situation, it's going to be the people in that community that are going to have to come together to be able to fix their immediate issues before any outside help arrives or any legislation is passed. So I'll just kind of start it off from there. It's a big conversation, but I do want to really pay homage to the Godfather, Dr. Claude Anderson, because I think he gave us a real understanding. There's an economic war that is being waged against us as a community. And if we don't figure out how to play the game and come together, then we will forever be relegated to a permanent underclass in America. I digress.
Yeah, I would love to speak to that as well. So I'm going to briefly interject that I think we have to be very clear on language. And so, truthfully, we are African people. I would say that the Black Americans are doing great, because those are the folks who are held up by the ruling class, right? We have to understand that in 2021, the United States was tried and convicted on 5 counts of genocide, right, against Black, brown, and indigenous people. So when we understand that, it's not just an economic war. They are guilty of war. Like, they are at war with our people, literally dropping bodies in the street. There are people sleeping outside. There are children starving. They are at war with us, right? They are using counterinsurgency tactics to raid organizers' homes, to give us domestic, terrorism charges. This isn't made up, right? I'm leaving Atlanta, which is home to Cop City, right? And they're giving people 35 years for holding up signs, right? And again, we have that same thing in the Bay Area. We saw that with Parker Elementary. Right, we see that in Oakland, we see that in San Francisco, we see that in Sacramento, we see it in LA. Again, we see it in St. Louis. And so we have to be very clear. There is a war on Africans, right? They are very clear. And so the masses of us, right, the poor working class, the masses, right? We are the 92% of us are workers, right? Those are the people who are being misguided, right, and led astray really by the Democratic Party, if we're going to be honest, right? Because we're told these nice things, again, like we just heard Biden say, right? We continue to be led astray with that representation, right? Like, that will be our answer. Again, I'm going to be so, hopefully I don't offend anybody, but like, London Breed is not for us, y'all. The same way that Kamala Harris wasn't for us. Right, they are part of empire, and so it is their job to uplift the Black elite, right? Which I would call the Black Americans, but the masses of us, of our people, right, are struggling, are poor, right, are oppressed, and live no different than anywhere else in the world that we might want to think of, right? The colonization of our people is real, and so I think it's important to name that and to again name how these politicians dress it up and give us fancy language and tell us all the right things to get our vote. But again, the state of our people has not changed in at least the last 60 years, outside of tokenism. a few black billionaires, but it doesn't change the masses of our people's material condition. And so I think we have to be very clear in that the war against us is very real. They utilize capitalism and its exceptionalism to romanticize our people and convince them they could be the next black millionaire, billionaire, et cetera, et cetera. And that is used to keep our people docile, to keep a revolutionary spirit at bay, right? Because how are you gonna be revolutionary when you can be a capitalist and a billionaire? And that's the truth, right? So I think we have to be very intentional when we name these things. The reason that we see these economic gaps, or whatever we want to call them, right? Again, whatever language we're using these days, it is strategic, right? Our labor from the inception of this American project has been what has produced this country capital and made this country billions of dollars, made it rich and wealthy and powerful. Whether it was our labor as enslaved Africans, whether it is our labor as enslaved workers to capitalism, right? Because if we do not work, we do not have house, we do not have food, we don't have the basic necessities. So you cannot say that we are not slaves to a wage and labor, right? If we're going to be honest and truthful about where we're at. And again, 92% of us are workers, right? So that tells you exactly who we are and where we are. They have changed the state of how our capture and our enslavement works, right? What we are working for. But the idea of working on the plantation has never changed. America just shifted economic modes after the Civil War, right? From agriculture to industrial, and that workforce had to reflect that. And so I think it's important that we name those things historically, right? And understand, again, the significance of the collapse of empire right now, right? With BRICS and everything like going on, you can see the end of U.S. global homogeny, right? And as that shifts, again, there's going to be a grasp for control. Biden is lying. Biden is lying, right? Like the recession is on the way. And if you don't believe it, again, look at BRICS. Look at these, quote unquote, third world or global South countries who are unifying and understanding that the United States doesn't need to be in power any longer, right? And I think if we can start to see ourselves as African people, right, and tied to this international struggle, then we would stop being so invested in what is happening here to our people in America, and understand that what is happening here to our people in America is a byproduct of imperialism and capitalism. I was talking a lot, so I'm gonna be quiet.
No, I think you said quite a mouthful, but I will say that I heard a good brother, Dr. Carr, explain America as a settler colony and also as a great criminal enterprise. And I think Dr. Claude Anderson kind of sums it up in some of his work, how we got here, what the catalysts were for the political structure that was put in place to devise a method to keep us in that state of constantly, as you say, working on the plantation, though the plantation goes by another name. So if I could, I would like to, in just a moment, give us a short video by Dr. Claude Anderson, but I do welcome any other comments in the meantime.
Well, hey, brother Ivan, I know that 9-minute clip, and it's some powerful stuff, and we definitely ought to put that. Make sure the people can find that. Put that in the chat. But because we've already had that long video, I want to kind of dig into that, because what the brother said, we are still honestly having to kind of deal with the mental side as a community of our relationship with economics and money, because, like, again, one of the main principles is what Bishop always talks about is, I don't want somebody to just give us a building. I want to own it, because he understands ownership is part of being empowered. And our community has been conditioned to, like, we celebrate when somebody is noted as the first Black person to get a job for a large established white corporation normally. But when somebody starts a business in our community, they don't get the same support or celebration or accolades. And we have a psychological fear of one, kind of pushing back, because historically we understand what happens to us when we try to organize or do things. When you go back to things like Tulsa and Black Wall Street, when we as a community didn't have the option to integrate and participate, we were left with nothing, had scraps, but we still had the ingenuity to put together our own stuff, and we excelled when we worked together so good that we surpassed everybody else. And there's something in our DNA, in our fabric, even now, with all the things going on. Yes, the economy is being controlled, manipulated, however you want to say it, and we're at the bottom. The system is not built for us. It's never been intended for us. So my question to my community is, mentally, how are we going to respond to the environment that we're in? Are we going to come together and unify and become the next generation of Black Wall Streets? Because we see that movement happening. We have young people now who are coming up in STEM spaces or in the tech industry, and they're starting to connect and make money together and starting to network together. And this type of attitude is the kind of attitude that has always brought our people out of extremely difficult situations. Are we owed reparations from? Absolutely. There was a great injustice done to us. It's documented. Everybody knows it. We're still being impacted, but we can't stand around holding our hands expecting them to just give it to us. We still have to take what we have and build ourselves up. And when the time is right, oh, it's gonna come. You can't cheat justice. Like, God ain't gonna be mocked. We as a community will get our justice, but it's not going to come by force or violence or begging. We have to unify, organize, and really educate ourselves on how to rebuild again. We've done it before as a people. We're going to do it again.
And I want to just add to that, Brother Mark, that it has been said, rather, that by about 2045, 2050, that we will essentially, Black America will have zero as far as wealth is concerned. We already suffer as the community, excuse me, with the lowest income, the lowest wealth, the lowest inherited wealth, and so forth. But our overall wealth will be zero in about 25, 30 years. That also is consistent with the idea that our political influence will be diminished to the point of not really mattering in about the same amount of time. And so I think those two things go kind of hand in hand. But I think Sister Khalees had a comment she wanted to make.
Yeah, because I'm just sitting here thinking, like, what's the difference? Because the struggle has always been real amongst Black folks. It's always been real. We've always had to be steps ahead. Steps ahead in education, steps ahead in making sure that we have food and adequate resources and everything that we need, the necessities. We always have to be on top of our stuff. We don't have, like Biden was saying, the family and who are homeowners. We want to make sure that we have shelter over our head. We don't care if we own the home or not. We're looking to make sure that our family and our children have shelter. Owning the home or not, we are trying to make sure. There's most of us living check to check. And there, again, that's another conversation. The wage disparity. I mean, come on now. We know a lot of us in management positions compared to, there is just so much. So we've always had to be a step ahead. And hopefully we've been raised and taught to be a step ahead, because when we haven't been taught those things, that's when we're behind the ball. We're behind then, because we've come up. Even back then, when we had to make do of what we had, picking cotton, and we learned how to sew and do all these different things, and we had to be very, very useful and creative with our hand. We are a unique culture. And I'll tell you, we've always had the struggle. The struggle's always been real.
Absolutely.
Can I speak to that really quickly?
Please, brother, come on in.
So to your point, I would like to ask, like, I think, and again, like, yes, we see Black businesses sprouting up, being brothers and sisters wanting to be entrepreneurs. But my question is, are they still coming with a capitalist mindset and framework that's all about themselves? Because if they don't have like Ubuntu in mind, if they're not practicing these African like economic practices, we just have black capitalism, and that is no better than white capitalism. That's just neo-colonialism, right? And so we're still being exploited.
Capitalism is capitalism. We have to be on code as black folks, because here's the thing. I'm saying. We're dealing with other communities. They have a code. They don't have it in writing or in print, but they understand you're not going to come into their community and set up business. They're going to do business with each other. And then when one of them sets up a business, all of them are going to support it. We have a psychological issue because we have access to the same tools and capital and resources. That's the thing about capitalism is it's merit-based. If you can get results, you can get paid. But that's
a lie. That's a lie. Capitalism is not merit-based. Capitalism is based off African labor and slavery, if we're going to be so factually honest. Capitalism is predicated off the exploitment of people, and those people are Africans. We can't get around that. Capitalism is not merit-based. We have to stop that myth. That's BS. Capitalism is what has enslaved us.
Okay, well,
right? Capitalism can't free us. Let
me rephrase it, brother, because I understand where you're coming from. When I'm talking about capitalism, I'm just talking about the clinical execution of principle. When you control all of the resources, when you control all of the laws, when you control all aspects of the economy, and you want to make sure it works for you, capitalism itself works. It's like saying all guns, like guns and stuff, it's how you use it. It's a tool, it's a structure. As a community, I'm just talking about us as black people. I've watched other communities come in and decide, I don't care what it takes, we gonna all work together. So if it takes 4 families living in one house and we all split the bills and save up money, then we buy the house next door, and then we do the same thing and wash and rinse and repeat, and we stick to code that if we spend our money, we gonna spend it with us first. If we took the same rules and played the same game on code as a community, we could get the same kind of results, is what I'm saying. I understand things like favoritism, nepotism, redlining, all the historical disadvantages that we as a community face, but we can't even stop fighting amongst ourselves over things like, well, I don't like the way you do that. Cool, but we still black. So we ain't got to agree on everything, but you stay in your lane, I'm gonna stay in mine. But when we can connect and collaborate, that's what we're gonna do. And I'm always gonna pick you first as an attitude. We have to get that back first.
And what I would say is you're describing cooperative economics. You're not describing capitalism. Capitalism, again, is private ownership, and it means that you are strictly about profit. You are not concerned about anything else, right?
Yeah, but you still gotta cooperate with people.
In capitalism, no, you have to step on people. We got to be honest with the people. Capitalism, again, we can look at black capitalism. We can look at Rick Ross. We can look at Jay-Z. Those folks, whether when they do good things, we can point and look at the ways that they exploit black workers, no different than white owners do. And when that's the case, right? Chairman Fred Hampton said if he caught a black capitalist, he'll beat a nigga to death with the Black Panther newspaper. That's how serious it was to Chairman Fred. And he said a black capitalist. Huey writes on this, right? We understand that.
And with all due respect, where's Brother Fred at right now?
Murdered by the pigs.
Exactly.
Because he was,
and this is where we have to be. I'm just saying, we just have to be pragmatic. We have to be smarter than the game. We know they ain't trying to give us power.
So we should give in.
No, hell no. I ain't saying give in, brother. What I'm saying is be more intelligent. Learn the lessons from before. Some things don't need to be talked about out in the open. For one thing, we need too much validation from other people. We want them to admit they wrong before we do anything. And I'm just saying, if we focus our efforts on, think of all of how we integrate sports. I think everybody can relate to that. They didn't want us in professional baseball, but once we got one in the dough, and then we got a couple of more, we dominated whatever we do. Even if the game is rigged against us, if we just get in and we do our thing, we can dominate. They not trying to see us dominate, but they can't stop us if we cooperate. And yes, we have principles that have a spiritual and moral base in our historical community that is not ascribed to capitalism. But if we gonna play in America on the field, and America is it's not a nation state, it's a corporation. That's why all the rules favor corporate structures. So let's play the game smarter than they are, but do it together and stick to our code. That's what I'm saying.
Come on, Jordan.
Yeah, I don't believe that capitalism can ever free us, that we can ever win, right? I don't think that that's a thing. I think that we can have individual freedom, right? If that's what we want to call it, individual financial freedom. But what I had a student tell me, an 8th grader, and he reminded me, he said, Mr. Mack, freedom isn't about you, it's about everybody else. So it's cool to have a Black Wall Street, but what are the rest of the masses? How are they doing? If we have a Jay-Z, we're going to have those. We have Black millionaires during chattel slavery, right? Again, if we're talking about, when we say Black America, that language is specifically talking about all of the Africans here that are captured in the United States. So that means we have to stop talking about we're talking about we. So if we as a people are going to be free, it can't be under capitalism. It just simply cannot. And I hear you understand. I hear you saying we need to be able to play the game. But if we're playing a game that is killing us, that doesn't make any sense. We don't defeat capitalism with capitalism. We do capitalism with socialism, right? You can't have someone own the means of production and think that they are going to look out for the whole. We, like you said, we have to cooperate. And what you were talking about with folks living together, again, that's communal style. They are engaging in that. So we have to engage in that. So when we build businesses, we need to build cooperatives. We need to build ways that all of the people that are involved, right, that all of our people are successful in this, right? And not, again, and then you're talking about institutions. Yeah, we need to have institutions. Our own institutions that aren't predicated on that. So yes, there are cooperations that needs to happen 100%, right? But again, I think that if we're telling people, if we're utilizing language and saying we can cooperate under capitalism, I think that's false. I think that 100% we need cooperation. But I think we have to be very clear that capitalism is one of our main enemies, right? Capitalism, imperialism, and colonialism. Those are the 3 things that we are facing as people here. And if we don't own that those are the 3 things that we're facing, and take an anti-colonial, anti-imperialist, and anti-capitalist stance, we are never going to get ourselves or our people free. We can continue to be subservient inside of the colony. And I hear you saying that we have to play inside of the colony, but it's our job to again, if we're going to work for the liberation of our people, we're also working for the destruction of this empire, truthfully. So we can't be subservient to it and its capital.
I'm trying to think here. So we talking about a Black business, right? You got a new Black business. You want the success of your new Black business. So hopefully you're going to also spend at Black businesses, but in return, you're hoping that Black businesses and people spend at your Black business, right? Because you want the success. So I cannot think outside of the box to grasp that I can't be selfish. I have to be selfish for my Black business because I want my Black business to be prosperous. Yes, I want all the Black businesses to flourish, but I'm about mine right now because I need it to flourish because it's a Black business. So because it's a Black business and that's what I'm starting it up on, I am kind of selfish with it being a Black business. I can't.
But is it a good business? Because here's please, Yayo. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Yayo. I'm sorry.
Is it a selfishness that you're saying that you only want your Black business to be profitable for yourself, and or is it a Black business that will help to grow the community? Like you want it to be a Black business that's going to be successful within your community, and for people to want to patriarch it and be a foundation for more businesses to come within the Black community. But when we say selfishness, it's not a selfishness like me, myself, and I. It's a Black selfishness for my people to be able to be successful within these building blocks. You know, a little back to what you were saying, Jordan, with you know, us not being able to patriarch and go to these Black businesses and build because we have the selfish mindset of more so of crabs in a barrel. Me. But how about we changing that narrative to say us being selfish, just like in the Asian community? You go to Chinatown in San Francisco, their dollars are circulating in every way possible, from the gambling shacks all the way to your dollar food chain, dollar Chinese markets where you get a whole bunch of food for $1. Those dollars are circulating unselfishly, selfishly with their community, because nobody can go shut up shop in those communities. They are not selling their properties and or selling those businesses to anybody outside of that their
own code.
Exactly. So for us to be able to build that in our Black communities, we have to have the selfish mindset of us, not me, but us, not me.
Ain't nobody else coming to save our community. And again, you don't bring a knife to a gunfight. If we can't be honest, because when we talk about a Black business, the first principle, the foundation of that is the business itself. Do we have the skill, the work ethic, and the resources to run an effective, profitable business? Does it employ other people? Because there are different types of businesses. Man, I ain't gonna lie. I love our expression of our spirit and our soul, but I wish we would celebrate more builders in our community, business-wise, than we do the entertainers. We have such a stronghold to singing, dancing, rapping, playing sports, that we don't understand that while, again, we talk about all these Black millionaires, but because their checks are usually given to them by established businesses that are productive, because again, it ain't the person getting the big check. Who's the people signing the big checks? What kind of businesses do they run? And a lot of them aren't sexy. Do we own things where if everything went down, do we have the network of services? Do we have plumbers? Do we have engineers? Do we have bankers? Our community doesn't need to be centered around churches and arts all the time. We need to have banking institutions. Like, we have to be much more strategic and practical when we talk about what types of things as a Black community and business are important to us.
So, Mark, are you talking about how we spend our money? Because you just mentioned on entertainment, because I know them tickets be $100 and up when you go see an artist. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I mean, again, the artist has a business, but oh God, please, I'm gonna draw from my church days. The word entertainment itself is made up of three separate words: enter, then tain, and in between the conjunction it simply means enter. It's to stop you from going in, and tain is to detain you from what your purpose is. So the entertainment meant literally to stop you from going forward into your purpose. So we have this idea, we love being distracted. We like being live. It's one of our coping mechanisms for all the grief, all the suffering, all the trauma. I mean, living behind enemy lines every single day does something. So we are addicted to escapism, but our addiction is what is also hindering us from having the economic strength and power to protect ourselves from all these agendas that are so well crafted and organized, and they are financially incentivized to profit other communities at the expense of us. That's why Asian people and Indian people can come into poor Black communities and extract all the dollars out, because they own all the stores. And then the stores don't even give good products. So we get low quality products. We're overcharged for them. None of the money cycles back into our community. So we don't own anything. So if they essentially wanted to starve us out as a community, they literally could. We've lost the art of, like, our guest we had on Hidden Gems, teaching the people how to grow food. Like we have to have the balance of being independently self-sufficient as a community, but we have to have structures in place if we're going to get real power as a community.
That's called nation building, though, right? That's nation building. That's part of it. But again, that comes with an ideology, and like as you said, that goes back to a consciousness. If we're going to be honest, a consciousness of, and again, I'm really big on language, so I wouldn't say selfish, but it's, again, I'm going to say Ubuntu. I am because we are, right? So that's what we have. Again, that's a communal African tradition. Like, that's traditional African practice. Those are what we have always done. We look out to make sure that we are taken care of. Colonialism has stopped that. It has halted that progress and our development as a people, right? And it froze that not only on the continent, but here are people that have been kidnapped and transported throughout the Americas, right? And so when we understand that, again, I heard you mention like the Korean or the Indian shop owner. Again, that is not who our common enemy. We have a common enemy, and we have to be very clear on that. Again, colonialism, imperialism, and capitalism are our enemy. That comes from pan-Europeanism, right? This idea that Europeans could take over the globe, and then that has permeated throughout the rest of the world that is not Africa, right? And so that we see the mad dash for Africa or Africans wherever and whenever by whoever that is not African, right? And so, yes, we see it in our communities, right? Where people are trying to come in and take shops and have control, right? But even Tupac, like when we think about to Latasha Harlins, like Tupac even said, we could be mad at the Korean, or we could get organized and focused on who our enemy is. Our enemy is the empire, right? We have to be very clear on that, again, on who our enemy is and what we are fighting against. Capitalism is the enemy, and it has made us our own enemy because we've become selfish in an attempt to become that next millionaire, that next whatever, right? And so if we don't, again, take time to be precise on language and what we are doing, then we're going to miss the mark, and we're going to continue to perpetuate the same harm to our own communities that everyone else is doing to us. Because again, you're right. There isn't anyone coming to save us. It's only us. It is only us. Africa has no friends, right? Everyone has a plan for Africa except for Africa and Africans. So yes, we do have to become self-sufficient, self-determined, and self-reliant, but we have to do that with a correct mindset. And it's not about we are going to be selfish or we are going to become the next Black billionaire. It is simply through Pan-Africanism, right? Understanding that we are connected to a much larger thing and that we are the global majority. And that if we unify, right, then we hold the power and the people hold the power. That is the truth.
I think we're kind of speaking the same language and we're using some different terms. I think semantics is playing a part in this. But what I think I'm hearing everyone say really is the bottom line is that we're all working toward the empowerment and the betterment of our community as a whole. And there are going to be some steps along the way that are necessary in order to fund those efforts to better our community. And what I'm hearing Brother Jordan say is just that. And what I'm hearing Brother Mark, Sister Khalees, Sister Ayo say is there are some steps that we need to take so that we have the means by which to pour back into our community. And so I think it's like I said, again, a matter of semantics. It comes down to you got to have money. I once heard it said, first you get the money, then you get the power, right? So you got to get the money so that you are able to support your people, to support your community. What Brother Mark was saying about the code is the most important part, I believe, of that equation is that, once you get the money, you got to stay on code, just like we talk about the Koreans and the Indians and all the other communities who come into our community. We can't do the same. We can't go into their community and start up a business. Okay. As a matter of fact, I heard it once said that if you are going to be a police officer and you're going to patrol Chinatown, well, the people in Chinatown have to okay you, essentially, in order to police them. Now, we're all under the same police, right?
That's
'Cause we're all
power.
under the same law, but that's the power that comes from the economics. And so I think what we're talking about here is we need to build up our economic power in order to be able to have some political power to kind of change the landscape. And I'll let you take it back from there.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, because I'm gonna tell you like this, brother. We absolutely need you. We need each and every one of you. Like I don't care what the difference of approach is. We need each other. Hands down, we're in a critical place. Like the state of Black America 2023 on June 25th is we are in a critical crossroads right now, and we have been so for a while. And if we just don't understand we need each other, and on every level, we have to collaborate, cooperate, and unify. So whether I say stay on code, or as the brother said, Ubuntu, like if I don't want, like Brother Ivan was saying, the semantics to cause us to be any more divided than we've already been. So let me understand your approach and strategy, find how I can connect, collaborate, and support it, and then let me do my thing in my lane, and you figure out how to collaborate and support that. And if that is the attitude that we have, and we can make that contagious throughout the community, and again, maybe I'm embellishing. I just see our ability to overcome, because I know what the numbers say, what the statistics say, but I also know who writes that narrative. And I know we as a people have the power to change the narrative if we change the way we think about it together.
All right. You said attitude and you said thing. Those two things stood out to me because you know what? Character and personality. You got morals and values. You can't be jealous of one another, right? Because when I say selfish, I'm talking about what Ayo said. She said it clear for me. You got to be selfish about us, right? Us, that Black business, us. And so I can't be jealous of your business. I can't be jealous or envious of what you got going on. It's one common goal, and that's all of us to come together, right? Ubuntu. But I tell you this, when one little envious jealousy seed get in that head and somebody be having some internal issues going on their insides, it destroys the way that they look at others and how they collaborate within a business. So I'm thinking back. Here we go. Like you were saying earlier, folks living together under the same roof. They're not going to be on the same page because we fight against each other too much. It's them traits, the moral, the personality, the characteristics. Are we really on the same page? Is there a little jealousy flaw coming in that thing and trying to destroy it?
Ooh,
So
we can even talk about. Go ahead, Ayo.
So Dr. Boyce Watkins' 10th Commandments, ownership is key, right? So this is the 10th commandment in his book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. He says, one of the greatest achievements of Black people in our recent years is that of us now fully understanding the power of ownership. The tide is in the turning of our community, now understanding that owning things is how you gain power. So the collective ownership, not just meaning when I say selfishness for selfishness for lack of better word, meaning a collective selfishness within our community, building each other up, not being jealous. Oh, this person, bad talking or downplaying someone else's business, but lifting each other up. More so when you reach to that economic level, turning back and reaching up for your person that is trying to also build them, giving them the education, giving them the tools and the resources that you've had yourself, and or you come across, just by common knowledge and putting the work ethic in, actually making sure that your brother and your sister, non-blood related, are actually being able to build up within the community. I'm from San Francisco, California, Bayview, Hunters Point. I go to my community and I don't know anybody, none of the mom and pop shops that were there growing up. Ford store is the only store in our community that I can see, go in and know that this is a Ford. This is a legacy of generations of this one mom and pop store. Everywhere else is brand new, all up and down 3rd Street. I don't know any of the businesses, nor do I know any of the faces, because we've allowed our community to be dismantled, and not dismantling in a way that we are putting up arms for one another, but dismantled for the money. And we're not pouring those dollars back into our community and our people. So to be able to be selfish in growing our communities, we have to have the mindset of each one teach one, and bringing your brother along. Not selfishness as in me, greed, 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 but for us to build a unity with each other.
Amen, sister. I couldn't agree with you more. I don't know what it is about us. We seem to be real scared of being intentional about bringing people in. Like there is that thing, like, I don't want to rock the boat. I got in the dough good and I ain't trying to order it. When we talked about entertainment, they would have their one handful of, two black folks that they would make, but like, we understand when they control the system and the structure, they can move it how they want to. Like this is, again, you have to have a very militant understanding of how economic structures work and how it interacts with us socially. A lot of our mental health challenges towards building community and being envious of each other and wanting to be validated, like even goes into dating. Think about how like we've talked about the money question, because historically and traditionally men were expected to pay most of the bills in a relationship, but economically our situation is a lot of our women now have asserted themselves financially. And so you're seeing the pushback from now, even just in our community. A lot of our women will say things like, oh, I'm making my money, so I don't need no man. So our community state right now is even being attacked, where we have divisions just between us as men and women. Like, money is integral for us to understand and cooperate, because instead of saying I got all this money now, I don't need no man, and if we had the mindset of, well, now as women, we coming up, we getting money, so what can we collaborate with on our men to invest in to raise us up as a community, instead of this, well, I got mine, let me see you get yours.
So what you've just heard, community, is Mark Scott just shared a little bit snippet of what July is coming with. We're going to be talking about relationships. So I'm just letting you know now, July, you better tune in, because we're going to be talking about relationships. So Mark just gave you a snippet of it. He about to open it up.
Yeah. We will have some very, very high-spirited conversations in July, I expect. But back to the topic we have today here. I think what I'm hearing everyone say is that we have to change our mindset. We have to change our mindset because, and I think I said it earlier, we have been brainwashed, or like Brother Mark said, brain poisoned. We have had so much poison put into our minds regarding our own interpersonal relationships and what that should look like. And it stems historically from the enslavement of our people, and it has been perpetuated forward unto the present day. And so I think ultimately what we're in search of is a way to put it succinctly, get our minds right. And I think that's what we need to do more than anything else. And I think the other things will flow out of that once we are able to get our minds right and understand how we as a community have to come together, work together, collaborate on things, lift one another up, not be jealous or envious of someone else's position or how much money they have, what sort of car they drive, or whatever else. And additionally, I think that we also ought to take some cues from other communities in that they are willing, and here's a key point, they are willing to let someone take the lead and follow that lead to a very intentional end. And once we can get that settled in our minds, I think then we can start to organize around that idea of the collective, of the community, and knowing that we all share responsibility, but we all have to play our individual parts. We have to play up to our strengths and our knowledge base and so forth in being able to offer what we can offer to that effort.
So much wisdom right there, Brother Ivan. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Brother Jordan, bro, thank you for joining us and giving us some time. I know you got some words of wisdom and some jewels for the community.
Yeah, and I would urge us all to take a second, because I think that consciousness that we are talking about, right, is really at the root of where we're at. Because again, even like you talking about how we relate to each other, right, in terms of relationships, right, it's through this lens of colonialism, right? Like our perception of what our relationship should be comes from like the colonizer, right? Like it comes from what we see and consume in media, right? If you read Asada's autobiography, she talks about how she was mad at her parents because her mother didn't vacuum in a pearl necklace. And you know what I mean? Like we get these distorted images of our own family, of ourselves, of our partners, of, right? And it's because we're seeing things through a European lens. And when we do that, right, we're not understanding who we are, and it conflates us. So that understanding of who we are as Africans, as a people, and understanding that we do have to do for self. I think it also goes back to, I know y'all are talking about studying other communities. I think we need to study ourselves on the continent, right? We have done this first before they ever came. We had it, and then we've resisted and built independence in Ghana and Guinea-Bissau and Burkina Faso and Eritrea, right? Like we have done this. Our people have done this. We don't need, yes, we can look at other folks, but let's look to ourselves, to our own history, right? To our own power. And I think, again, just understanding who we are, what our values are. And again, I'm going to battle y'all just for that word of selfishness, because I'm very picky on language. But again, what I'm going to say is just a consciousness of understanding that, like you said, it's we, right? To me, that's Pan-Africanism. Understanding that our people are first. Garvey said that, right? Right? Our people are first.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's just a consciousness, right? I would call it Pan-Africanism, right? Like understanding our people are first, that they need to be at the center of that. But as a consciousness, right? I think that we all agreed on that. And I think that when you change that, even the Black businesses that we do have, then they are willing to pour into those institutions like a bank, like a school, but if you don't, then you have the individual selfish mindset, which is what I'm afraid of, right? Of a Jay-Z who, you have $1 billion, but the projects that you grew up in look the exact same. Those kids are still starving. Those kids still have inadequate school. Those people still don't have health care, right? That's the selfish that I see. And that's what I'm fearful of us taking on those European values and saying, this is what it looks like. This is what Black businesses should look like and be successful. No, Black businesses should pour into the community. They should uplift. They should empower. They should help the future. They should build those institutions that we need to be free. And so that's what I hope that everyone leaves with.
And I just want to make certain, and I know Brother Mark has a comment, but I just want to make certain that my comment wasn't misconstrued. By no means do I mean to take on a Eurocentric perspective of the world. I think absolutely we must have an Afrocentric perspective, and I think that when I talk about communities, because we have something of a division between who we call African Americans and those of us who we call Ghanaian Americans or Nigerian Americans or Somalian Americans and so forth. And what we have to understand is we come from, like Brother Jordan was saying, a very, very long history of community building, architecture, engineering, astronomy, mathematics, language, and so many other things. Okay?
Civilization.
That's what comprises it, right? All of those elements is what comprises civilization. And so what we have to know is that it's in us already. It's not something that we have to seek from some outward entity or community. So my comment was simply this, that as we look around us, we see the cooperation in these other communities. And what we have to do is we have to nurture that cooperation within our own communities so that we can do not perhaps the same thing, but something very similar to what they do, but from an Afrocentric perspective. So that is the comment I was hoping to get across there, Brother Morgan.
And yes, Brother Ivan, I 100% agree with you. And what I was going to say is because I can feel Brother Jordan's passion about this, and he's absolutely right. There is a large part of our history that gets mistook and focused on too much, coming from the slavery forward to not understanding the rich, vast history that came all before that. That I personally, Brother Jordan, I would like to invite you to come back on a Thursday night for Educational Thursdays and teach on some of these civilizations and give examples, because we do need to draw from our own history on how we've done it in the past and how we can translate those principles into modern day times going forward. So, brother, please understand you're getting an invitation to come back and help share some of this passion and knowledge that you have on Thursday nights. Because, man, we need to understand ourselves better, because knowing thyself is the first step in being able to really embrace and love others.
I echo that, Jordan, because you know what? We family here, and we be spending nights with each other on Thursdays and Tuesdays. So guess what? If you come Thursday, we for surely going to get it. So come on back.
He was already our hidden gem. You're not.
I was like, will do.
He's not hidden anymore. He was a hidden gem already. He's not hidden anymore.
So we have this younger generation coming up, right? Because we still need to talk about how we're spending our money. How are we spending our money now, and how should we be spending our money? We talked about, we need to spend with Black businesses and this, that, and another. And it's crazy because when you think about spending with Black businesses, I'd rather go to them because they cheaper. I'd rather go to them because they got a better attitude. I'd rather go to. But when you really think of how are we spending our money? I'm talking about necessities versus needs and wants. How are we spending our money?
Say Black folks buy what they want and beg for what they need. We got an issue for some reason of trying to buy our worth with name brands and labels. And we literally spend the most money with people who can't stand us and wonder why we ain't getting ahead. We spend our money categorically in a lot of dysfunctional ways that don't help our community at all. Escapism.
Don't you think that's a product of colonialism, though, right? Like,
absolutely, that's the psychological trauma we inherited from colonialism. Like, it was.
We want to match, we want to match what they have. We want to be just as good. Like, I think the sister said, we were always. I remember as a kid getting taught, like, you always have to be 2 times as good, right? So, so I want to have what they have. I want to prove to them that I'm just as good. And I think that's, again, getting back to that consciousness of, like, what are our values? Right? Are we valuing the new whip and all the gold, but that's capitalism, right?
That's why we was killing each other for tennis shoes, over colors, over neighborhoods we don't own. Like our dysfunction is so deep. I mean, you think about this: the last 450 plus years of generation after generation of unchecked, untreated, undiagnosed, unhealed trauma reproducing, it passes through our DNA. So it affects the way we think and handle and process things. And when you add on top of that the strain of living with economic struggle consistently, we stay in a perpetual survival mode behind enemy lines in a mental way that, yes, you got to excuse us as a community if we got some issues. We ain't rap tight because what we was given wasn't rap tight. But we still seem to come out amazing. And we have examples of, well, if one can do it, we all can do it. And no, everybody can't do the same thing. But the example of, okay, you give us scraps, watch us turn it into a delicacy. And then pretty soon you're going to envy what we do so much. You're going to try to buy it, emulate it, copy it. You don't want us, but you want our soul. You want our music. You want our looks. You want our, like, we are such a powerful source of creation. We're just missing the self-worth and value to appreciate. So instead of capitulating to a capitalistic system that monetizes us to sing about killing each other, if we was on code, we wouldn't let that come out our mouth. You don't hear other communities promoting music where they talk about killing each other in the street. Like, we're a little messed up as a community. We need some help. We need some healing.
We do. You're right, Mark, because I remember, I'm going to have to share this. Y'all know I talk about my grandmother a lot because that's who raised me. That's like my mama now. Listen, so in 3rd grade, I remember it was a Chinese boy named Zong, and then it was an Indian girl. Now, these 2 kids, I'm very observant. So I'm sitting next to them, and I was raised in a black neighborhood. School, mostly black teachers, everybody black. So I'm looking at the Asian and the Chinese and the Indian, and I'm looking at their dress, how they're dressed. And I don't know if y'all know what Pro Wings is, but okay. They had on Pro Wings, I remember, and I'm observing how it looks like they were in hand-me-downs and stuff. So I'm really paying attention to how they were dressing. Do you know these were straight A students all the way up through school, through middle school, through high school? And I watched them because I'm observing now. I'm trying to figure this thing out. They were worried about school, college, their future. Wow. I'm sitting up here thinking, man, I don't want to wear no Pro Wings. I don't want to wear no hand-me-downs. I don't want to wear this because I want to look at least good, even if my mind ain't in the right place. That is the most illest way of thinking. I tell you. And that's one of the things I think that we mess our kids up with, because we like to outdo folks. We try to outdo people. Instead of thinking about the future and ahead, we thinking about how we look now. I'm just saying.
For me growing up, like I was one of them. You hand me down. I'm the youngest of four. Like everything my sisters and them experienced, Disneyland, all of that. When it came to me, I felt like I was cursed. 1983, baby, them 80s hit hard. So I didn't realize we were poor until people started making fun of me. Like I didn't understand it because I've always been the, hey, you're sitting by yourself, come over here. I've always been the joyous person. Like I didn't realize it until we moved to a different neighborhood and people start pointing out things in me that I didn't even recognize. And that's where it was like, oh, wait, no, let me make sure. But whatever I had, I made sure I was clean, hygiene. Even if it was Pro Wings or them old school, what we used to call the
karate kicks.
The karate kicks. They were clean. I didn't have holes in my clothes or anything like that. Even if it meant we were washing stuff out. We were rich in spirit, in family, in values, in morals. So I didn't realize what it was not to have. You know what I mean? So for a part of me, even when it comes to my children, it's about incentives. If you have something that you really want, it's some Jordans or something for my older son that's coming out. It's about incentives. It's about putting that work ethic in. You got to show me that you've earned this. You got to show me that, because I'm not going to go spend $250 just so you can look good and you don't have it up here. So yes, it's important for you to be a honor roll student for me, because what's on your feet is not going to get you to where you really need to go. Jesus walked barefoot, sandals and all, to get to where he was going. It wasn't about the clothes. It's about your spirit. It's about your integrity. It's about making sure that when you get to a certain spot in your life, that you're looking out for everybody else. And that's how I've always been myself. So that's what I'm teaching my children. You know what I mean? Yes, I like to dress nice, but I bet you I can make some Fashion Nova and or some Forever 21 look just as good as somebody that's walking down the street with every name brand, every designer on. But I bet you what's inside of here and what's inside of here carries way more wealth than anything that you have on your body.
So I ain't never gonna see you outside with no Gucci flip-flops and a bonnet on your head, right?
Not me.
Okay, just
check
it. Just check it. I mean, again, I this is something we see in our community. You know, it'd be somebody that have on a $600 Gucci belt, and they look like they just rolled out of bed with like they ain't brushed their teeth, they ain't combed their hair, they got a bonnet on, house shoes, pajamas. But like there is
let me say one thing to interject. There was a picture circulating, and I know you're in Houston, you don't know what the projects is out here. There was a picture circulating around social media. Girl dripped from head to toe. She has every designer on, Balenciaga, Gucci, everything you can imagine in front of a Benz. Her background is Sunnydale Projects. Your rent is $25. You have on every name brand. What are you teaching your children? What are
I
you
heard
showing?
it once said. I heard somebody say, I think it was in a rap song, you don't buy $80,000 car before you buy a house.
You sure right. You're right about that, Ivan. You left a good one right there.
There you go, Ivan.
Hey, wait a minute. How many of us know somebody in our family that has done that? or have participated in some of this. See, now let's be honest, because see, this is where the conversation hits the road. We can talk platitudes and what we should be doing, but how do we like for real, like this is what we're dealing with. We have a psychosis. So I don't want our conversation to come across as insensitive to people, but some of the things that we're going to have to look in the mirror and own. Yes, there's a system against us. Yes, we're behind enemy lines on a lot of things, but like the principles that I was speaking to, will we start with self, take pride in what we have and grow it and build it? Or will we chase the illusion and try to look like we got it together when we really ain't got no power? Because like Coley said, the other kids, they wasn't worried about looking cool. They was worried about studying because they understood power dynamics because their parents trained them. No, you gonna run something, and all them people that's being cool now, they gonna come to you begging for you to get them a job. So don't be cool now, be the boss later. You be real cool later.
Or
We just want to be cool.
Yeah, you may have to schedule your doctor's appointment with one of them, the ones that you was sizing them up and looking at them. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm telling you, my grandmother was a cold seamstress. They didn't know. Grandma was sewing me and my sister clothes. She was sewing them clothes on a sewing machine. So, man, I mean, shoot, I was eating pork chop sandwiches when people was bringing whole big, nice lunches to school and stuff. But I tell you, she made do. But you gotta know what's in your
take a
head.
pork chop sandwich though. I ain't gonna lie with some of that fancy stuff anyway. But I'm sorry, I like home cooking.
Yeah, but nonetheless, you got to know how you raising your kids. The point I was making is, man, I'm sitting up here as a kid looking at the community and everybody worried about dressing, you know, and it rubs off on you. When you're not instilling that stuff at home, you're watching, especially if you one of the kids that was getting made fun of, you know what I mean? If you was one of the kids getting made fun of, it made you have a conscience as to where you start looking at these different things and wondering, well, why am I inadequate? Why I gotta be less than because I don't have this, that, and another. No, what is the end result? That's what it's about, that future.
Classism, I mean, think about it. We as a community, kids, you ain't even got to tell them, but will divide themselves amongst what brands you got. Oh, you can't afford the real. Oh, you can't afford. Oh, you ain't got Jordans. You got Pro. Oh, no, you can't hang with. You can't sit. So we build classism and division in the entire community through material things, and it robs us of the essence of community slowly, and then we embrace it. So now, instead of when one person gets some money, instead of how can I invest so I can help other people get on, is I want to flash, let me stunt in front of everybody, show you how much I got. And we celebrate talking about how broke the rest of our people are in our community. And like, you don't have to be a good person in America to be celebrated or loved or adored or get whatever you want. Just be rich. Money makes you worthy in a capitalistic system, even though you could be morally bankrupt.
Right. I think what you might be referring to inadvertently is a lot of this rap music that glorifies the car, which oftentimes is rented just for the video. Which glorifies the house, which is often leased out, again, for the video. Meanwhile, there's this expectation that everyone will kind of feel that you are the man because of these supposed material things that you have, when in fact, it's all for show. And I think lots of people internalize sort of that message that you gotta look like something, right? If someone is to respect you, if someone is simply to regard you, you have to look like something, right? You have to look like you have something. You have to look like you have no worries, no concerns about where your next meal is going to come from, how you're going to feed your children, how you're going to send your children to college eventually. And so that bleeds into our consciousness. And it then becomes ingrained in our consciousness, unfortunately. And we see the product of that when we talk about these children who are walking around the schoolyard and calling every other kid who doesn't have these sorts of clothing items on, you know, different sorts of names and whatnot. When in fact, like Sister Io was saying, they may be living in the project while that other kid who might be wearing I don't know. It used to be Levi's versus there was a pair of pants that I used to wear from Sears that
Tough skins.
yeah, there you go. There you go. But we lived in a house, okay, in the meantime. So I think there's this unfortunate attitude toward the way we look on the outside versus actually figuring out what we need to do to solidify our foothold where we are economically, politically, and so forth. But it all starts economically, and foolish spending will not get you there.
No, it won't. And because again, I know we're talking about the economic state of Black America, but just as you highlighted, so much of it is tied to the psychology of Black America. It was, I believe, one of the original 5 Rothschild brothers, when he made a statement in the early 1800s, he says, I don't care who makes the laws. Let me just control the money and I'll control the people. Money and our psychology have become so interwoven with each other. I mean, you think about people, who was the brother was the dancer on the Ellen show, had lost a lot of money when one of the token companies went bad and he committed suicide, like because of money's effect on how we feel about ourselves. If we don't empower ourselves, we're literally at the mercy of economic policies and corporations that we don't even understand. And it's not wise for us as a people to remain disempowered or ignorant of what can be done or what's being done. And I just hope somebody gets some encouragement out of this conversation, or at least starts thinking differently about how you view money and how you view yourself. Because before money was ever invented or created, we as a people had a currency that we traded amongst ourselves that is much more intrinsically valuable. Because if I'm drowning in water, don't throw a stack of money at me. Give me another human being who knows how to swim to pull me out. And people are the real value. We are the essence of true value as the Creator made us. Somewhere along the line, we've lost that and we've allowed money to replace real value. And we have to take that relationship back up here in our minds first.
You said it.
We've lost also our autonomy because we, as Brother Jordan said earlier, we're enslaved to this capitalistic way of living that is by design to keep us poor. Get the flash, go out there, spend your money. You're going to Macy's, you're going to Weinstock's, you're going to Nordstrom's, you're going to I Magnin and all of these other different names where people go and spend their money to have that look. Well, while you have that look, you're keeping yourself in debt. As long as you're in debt, you got to go to work for somebody. As long as you're working for somebody, can't do anything else beyond that. You can't build a business, generally speaking. Some of us are talented enough and have enough internal resources that we're able to kind of burn the candle at both ends, as they used to say. But in the meantime, most of us have to go back to work the next day. So we can't figure out what we're going to do to start a business that might help our community. And so it's a vicious cycle. And so meanwhile, while we're flashing, we are not in control of anything else.
Assets and liabilities. Like I say, Chris Rock cracked me up. He had that joke talking about Shaq. When Shaq got that $100 million contract, talking about Shaq is rich. The white man who gave him the check is wealthy, and we have to understand the difference. We like shiny things that are liabilities to our economic power. We need to start owning assets, things that make us money, and that's why again I was so proud when I heard Bishop say, "Look, yeah, they offered us a building, but says I don't want it unless I can own it." And that's the mentality we have to embody. And so, man, so salute to the bishop, man. And I hope he's enjoying himself, missing, but man, can't wait for him to get back. But that's the energy and the spirit we have to continue to carry with the vision of this conversation is, man, assets over liabilities, people. As Black people, we need to start making owning assets cool. Make it, I mean, we cool with what we do, but yeah, stop spending it on liabilities.
Right on, right on. So both sides of the conversation, I tell you, we didn't heard it all here. Oh yeah, Ivan, there's no more wine stocks. I mean, wine stocks have been gone for quite some time. But if we can,
I don't shop. I don't shop, so I don't know these things. I'm sorry.
so I just want each and every one of you, please give your wrap up. Share something with the community as to how we can do better.
Desire.
So I just want to leave you with a quote. As I've been saying all night, the newest book I've been reading is Dr. Boyce Watkins states in his book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. It's been resonating with me. This is my second go of reading it so I can get a better understanding. But as the old saying goes, you know, it starts at home, right? And so the quote is that the Black family is an absolute gold mine of possibilities. The parent who raises his or her children in such a way that it enhances the family business will rarely have serious financial problems. Black people must be trained to think when it comes to economics. When we are together in groups, we are stronger. When we have solid families, we are greater force. When everyone is working together as a collective, it is far more difficult to harm or exploit us. So that goes back to what I was saying, like I said, for lack of a better word, the selfishness of us building our communities, building up each other within our families. Like Khalees said, not having that envious spirit against your brother and or cousin or auntie. Yeah, you can have multiple families within one household, but what are you doing to build each other up? What are you doing to set that foundation, both morally rich and spiritually rich and economically sound and found in having that foundation to build and branch for one another? And we would be able to build our communities up when we start with our families and have that model behavior for each other, making sure that we expand and reach out each resource, what we learn, each one teach one, and making sure that we build those sound foundations of selfishness, a collective selfishness for building our Black communities.
Brother Mark.
Wow. In a nutshell, let's just be honest, we need each other. And the economic state of Black America is dire. If we don't wake up as a community and start embracing, cooperating with each other, we're going to be picked apart. Like, we just can't escape where we're at. That's the reality. I want us to be encouraged because we do have the ability to circle the wagons for the Black community and start moving that needle into the right direction. And I hope we do. We're going to have to address our psychological relationship with money. We're going to have to deal with the biggest thing, I think, when it comes to ourselves is just humbling ourselves. We need to lose the ego. As much as ownership and being an entrepreneur and being a boss is an attractive title, let's be honest, all of us aren't built for it. All of us aren't built to be business owners or entrepreneurs. Some of us, we need to be good workers, but let's do it with the right mindset, that we're all on code, that we will champion and celebrate and cheer on somebody else, even if what they're doing isn't in our lane. The fact that they are part of us, they look like us, we share the same enemies. We have to stick together and support in whatever lane we're in, and don't knock somebody else publicly. That's another thing. Some of our conversations and critiques need to be kept offline and had privately. So some things can only be repaired behind closed doors so that we can continue to push together and work together out in the open.
And let me say that I'm a bit saddened by the fact that Brother Jordan kind of fell off here as he is traveling. I know that he would have offered us some great words of wisdom in closing here. But what I will say is this. What I've heard each and every one of us say here today, including Brother Jordan, is that we need to change our mindset. We need to change our mindset so that we can change the narrative. He's working on doing that. If he could get a little support, it would be grand so that he could have stayed in the same location where he had the neighbor program going on, where he was feeding the neighborhood and teaching the small children and showing them how to grow their own vegetables and things like that for self-sustainability while embracing the community as a whole in the Black and brown areas, and other folks profited or benefited, I should say, from his work as well. So it's a great work that he's done. What I would say is I would hope that someone might pour into that business, pour into that organization rather, so that he could keep that work going. Because I think his message is one that is very powerful, and I think it's very necessary. I think once we can get our minds right, we can start to get our actions right. And once our actions are right, then we can start to get the results that we actually need for the betterment of our community. So I would hope that everyone under the sound of my voice understands that we have to be, as Brother Mark said, for us, because there's no one else coming to rescue us. So we have to work together. We have to get out of the mindset of having all of these different disagreements over who's going to lead and what sort of work we're going to undertake and what we're not willing to do for someone else. And, all of these sorts of detractions from what we're ultimately trying to get to. So hopefully we have all of us today have spoken enough about the idea that we need to get together to get it together. Once we get together, we can get it together. So I hope that that's the takeaway from today's conversation. Sister Colise.
Wow. And that's to all of you all. Yeah, we're family. I'll tell you, we have a bond. We have a bond. But you heard it, community. Biden said no promises. There's nothing concrete. Gas prices are down. Black businesses are up. When was your last conversation about actions versus stuff? Ask a young person. Ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? Remember those conversations? What do you want to be when you grow up versus the new release on the retro J's? Mark said that we buy what we want and beg for what we need. Jordan reiterated Ubuntu. I am because we are. Ivan said, don't buy an $80,000 car if you ain't got a house. Ayo even said her internal morals and mind frame is far more valuable than the prices on your outer appearance. In the absence of the bishop, he said he don't want it unless he can own it. With or without reparations, you must succeed. We must succeed. You have to get ahead, community. Get from behind the ball. How are we doing as a community, Black people? How are we spending our dollars? Are we considering spending our dollars with one another? Are we envious? Are we jealous? Are we setting up our children for financial success? Are we wanting our seeds to do better than us? When are you without your next paycheck? How would you do? Where are you without it? Are there specific wants that you can do without to increase your net worth in the future? What's your worth? What are you building yourself up to be? If a household member was removed, would you be able to survive financially? Do you see yourself coming out ahead in the near future? Are your actions lining up to where you want to be to meet your goals? Uplift one another, build one another, connect with each other, dig into your gut and make sure you are being real with yourself. How can we do better? Change the narrative with your mindset and your actions. That's what I've heard today. Change the narrative with your mindset and your actions, community. Today, we've had that conversation on the economic state of Black America. We've given you all that we have today with Sunday Conversation. Tuesday is our Hidden Gems. We will see you at 7 p.m. But today has been a great conversation. We've enjoyed ourselves. Jordan, thank you for being here. We know that you're moving through on that metal bird, but I tell you, that iron bird gonna get you back to where you need to be. Safe travels for the Bishop and Jordan in their absence, but I tell you, it's been a great conversation. Thanks for having us today, and we look forward to seeing you on Tuesday. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.